The Aprilia RS660 has been around for a number of years and are reviewed on the channel. However, its number one competitor is coming out on the market, and it's by another company that I've owned a motorcycle of, specifically the Street Triple RS. But now they're coming out with another triple, which is going to be a Daytona 660. The Daytona 660 is on a triple platform, just like my Street Triple RS, but it only produces 660cc, similar to the Trident, although it has a little bit more power, I think. The power sits at 95 horsepower, and it has about 50 foot-pounds of torque. Unfortunately, the motorcycle does not come with an IMU system. They decided not to include it, obviously to bring down the price. Totally makes sense, and on a bike like that, it really isn't necessary. In fact, if you're not running a 1000cc, IMUs are just a waste of time. You can argue down below in the comments section if you disagree. As far as the tires are concerned, you got 120 in the front, you got 180 in the rear. But the major difference between the two motorcycles is the weight, because the Daytona 660 from Triumph weighs a staggering 443 pounds wet. I can't believe that for a 600 motorcycle. That's a lot of weight right there, and I'm really surprised by that, because usually track bikes or motorcycles that are meant to be ridden on the track, or they're in a sport bike category, usually a lot less. My RS4, as a matter of fact, is 440 pounds wet as well, but this is a 1000cc. It makes sense. And then finally, Triumph being Triumph, they're going to give you a couple of options here and there, but it does not come with heated grips, but the functionality is built in and it's already wired for it. So if you wanted to add that in there, you could. And then finally, the base price for the motorcycle is $9,195, which is pretty comparably priced if you ask me. Anyway, now let's move on to the Aprilia RS660. The difference between the Aprilia and the Triumph is a 5 horsepower difference, because the Aprilia has a 100 horsepower engine, and the engine produces 49 foot-pounds of torque, which is down 1 foot-pound from the Triumph. One of the major differences between the two motorcycles is the fact that the Aprilia comes with an IMU system. Now, as I already mentioned, an IMU system is absolutely unnecessary for these motorcycles. Tires are the same thing on the Aprilia, 120, 180. Another major difference is that on the Aprilia, you get higher spec Brembo brakes. The brakes on the Triumph are 310mm, but they're 320mm on the Aprilia RS660. Rear is pretty much the same on both. You get 220mm on the Aprilia as well as the Triumph. But by far, the most major difference between the two is that the Aprilia's wet weight is 403 pounds versus the gargantuan 443 of the Triumph. As a middleweight tier bike, I'm staggered that Triumph built a motorcycle that weighs so much. So not only is the Triumph down by 5 horsepower, but it's also up by 40 pounds. But anyway, now that we got the specs out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about what these bikes can offer you. And I'll give you my first-hand impression on the Aprilia, since I have the most experience with that. Unfortunately, the Triumph hasn't come out yet, or else I'd be at my dealership checking it out. But they should be having it pretty soon, so I'll definitely report back to you guys once I have a first-hand look at it. Anyway, let me get on my own Aprilia for now. I love this bike. As long as it doesn't give me trouble, I love it. My honest opinion, the person who's going to buy the Aprilia is going to be the person who's going to want to take it to track days. They're interested in something light, they're interested in something nimble, and because it has 100 horsepower, it's going to feel a lot more zippier in and around the turns. Plus, it's got that IMU system, which is going to come in pretty handy for you at the track. The Triumph, on the other hand, is a motorcycle for someone who's probably looking for their first sport bike, which is not something that is too intimidating. Although both motorcycles are pretty good when it comes to ride comfort, from what I've read, I think the Triumph is going to be a much more comfortable motorcycle. And I completely forgot to mention this, but the Aprilia is going to cost you a lot more than the Triumph. The Aprilia sits somewhere around $11,500 before dealer fees, taxes, and all that other stuff. So, out the door, It's definitely going to be more than $13,000-14,000, which is quite a lot, honestly. So that's the appeal of getting the Triumph, I guess, as your first motorcycle, because it makes complete sense. If you want 660cc and you want somewhere around 100 horsepower, then it makes complete sense to go the Triumph route, because I've owned a Triumph, I know exactly how they are, and I've also owned an Aprilia, and I know exactly how they are. And I can quite honestly tell you that the Triumph is probably going to be a more reliable motorcycle. Triumphs in general, specifically speaking, that triple engine, not only sounds absolutely incredible, but they're also bulletproof. It doesn't really matter what kind of Triumph you get. Any Triumph, for that matter, will have quality components. The feeling you get while touching the handlebar and looking around everywhere, it feels high quality, and that's one thing that I absolutely love about Triumph. Not to say that Aprilia doesn't produce a quality motorcycle. Yes, they do. My Aprilia feels absolutely amazing, and the Aprilia RS660 is no exception. But I think Triumph has an edge over most manufacturers when it comes to producing a quality product. Maybe it's a British thing? I have no idea. Italians know how to do one thing best. They just produce a motorcycle that's overall fun to ride. They don't really care that much about reliability because they know they gotcha when it comes to excitement. Ask me how I know this. One thing I will mention though, just by looking at both motorcycles, the Triumph 660, even though it is a brand new bike, with those headlights and that body, it still looks like an outdated bike. And that's where the Aprilia shines. In my opinion, the Aprilia RS660 is just oozing in sex appeal. It comes in absolutely gorgeous colors. You got that yellow. If you want something more conservative, you can get the black and red. And I believe they have an additional color. I forgot which one it is, but I'll put a screenshot on the screen so this way you guys can see what I'm talking about. But regardless, if you want an ultra sexy motorcycle that is an absolute head turner, then it would definitely be the Aprilia. Of course, with that kind of sex appeal, along with its IMU system and quick up and down shifter, which I don't think comes in the Daytona, you're gonna pay a premium, and that premium is somewhere around $2,400. And if my math is incorrect, I'll put it on the screen. And then of course, let's not forget, on the Aprilia, you're gonna get a 320mm front disc brake, and it's provided by Brembo. Want to race? Give me a head start. And then on the other side, the Triumph has a 310mm disc brake, 220 in the rear, and it's probably by an unknown brand, because when I was looking at the specs, there was no mention of Brembo. It just said what the specs are for the brakes, which is how many millimeters it is, and that's pretty much it. You are paying more for the Aprilia than you are for the Triumph, but I think they're made for two separate people. As I mentioned before, the Aprilia is for someone who's a track enthusiast. They want to get the most out of their motorcycles. They have a little bit of experience under their belt, or they're looking for like that Italian spicy meatball machismo motorcycle that they're going to look absolutely cool in. If that's you, then the Aprilia is calling your name. But if you're someone who is just starting to learn how to ride, maybe you got 3 to 6 months worth of experience under your belt, and you want to get that cool brand new Daytona 660, then I think the Daytona is probably the better bike for you, because you're not going to be doing 10 or 12 track days per year. You might do 1 or 2 per year, and that's going to satisfy you, and that's totally fine. Quite honestly, I'm still shocked that Triumph is creating a Daytona, because when the Daytona 765 came out, it was sitting on showroom floors, brand new, nobody even wanted to touch it. And this is the reason why a brand new 765 Street Triple has come out, and they still haven't come out with a brand new Daytona, because even Triumph has mentioned it before in videos that I've watched in the past. They're saying that these bikes just don't sell very well, so this is the reason why they're not making them. And it makes complete sense why they haven't made another one. And so I'm really surprised that they came out with a Daytona 660, but considering the way the market is going towards right now, you got the brand new R7, you got the ZX4RR, you got you got the new CBR 600 that just came out, and now you got a brand new 660 from Triumph, which is a Daytona variant. Let's go in here. This looks beautiful. Beautiful sunny day by the beach. Oh man, what a day to ride. Let's turn it off so we don't disturb people. We'll stop it right over here. Guys, you know, I really don't know what to say or what to think at this point. It's awesome for the person who's looking for a 660 or around 600cc motorcycle, because now your options are plentiful. As a second or third bike, I think these motorcycles make complete sense. In fact, I was considering getting an Aprilia RS660 for myself some time ago, because I'm interested in going to small tracks, as you know, because I've talked about it in the past multiple times. If you don't want to break the bank, because number one, they're easier to insure. Number two, they don't use a lot of gas, because gas is pretty good on them. Number three, I have no idea how the licensing works in Europe, but I believe an A2 license works with the Triumph. But regardless, these motorcycles are made for probably younger riders or newer riders who are just getting into the market for the first time. So I really can't say which one I recommend, to be honest with you. Just go with what your budget can afford. Me personally, I would probably go for the Aprilia, because it's just like sex on wheels, man. That thing is absolutely gorgeous. But it's also going to cost $11,500 before you add all the fees, and by the time you're done with all the fees, you're looking at a motorcycle that costs close to 14 grand. Ouch, maybe even more than that. So going the used route is an option right there, but if you can't afford that much, then you know what, the Daytona is a cool bike. It's just I don't know, man. It's just me personally. But looking at the front of the motorcycle, it still looks like an outdated bike. I wonder why they didn't make it a bit more chiseled and more modern looking. But you know what? I'm going to hold my opinion until I actually see it in person. And then once I see it in person, I'm probably going to make another video about it and be like, guys, I was wrong. Or I was right. This thing is ugly looking. But anyway, until then, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.